Hey there, freaks. Is this thing on? It's your boy Marty Bent here to introduce this week's episode of Tales from the Crypt. Getting this episode out a little bit late on a Saturday morning here. I had a busy week. Recorded 3 podcasts in 24 hours between Thursday and Friday, with this one being the second of the 3. Sat down with Whit Gibbs, co-founder of Hashr8OS and the co-host of the Hashr8 podcast. Whit came across my radar on Monday. Actually, somebody forwarded me the most recent episode of the Hashr8 podcast from last week, and they were talking a lot about SHA-256 mining and Asics and what's going to happen around the halving with S9s being moonlighted. Whit also mentioned that he was going to be in New York later that week, so I DM'd him and said, hey, I'd like the conversation you guys had on that podcast revolving around Asic miners. I'd like to shoot the shit about mining, because I think mining is something, again, that I'm infinitely fascinated by. In this space, I think it's something that's underscored and very underappreciated. A lot of people overlook it for software. I think this Bitcoin revolution is as much as a hardware revolution as it is a software revolution, and I don't think mining gets enough tick on this show. So I invited Whit in to talk about mining and what he's been doing. Hashr8OS, they create software to monitor mining operations for miners. So we talked a lot about the mining landscape, different types of mining, GPU mining, ASIC mining. There's a little bit of shitcoin talk in this podcast, trigger warning. But it was an overall great conversation. We also drifted into a bunch of other topics, including freedom in the digital age, how to create a social profile in the modern age. It seems like social credit scores are already here in America. It's just not as blatant as it is in China. Whit has a very interesting story about that particularly, so definitely make sure you listen to the whole episode to get a really good conversation. This episode of Tales from the Crypt is brought to you by the Cash App. You freaks already know all about them. And if you don't, now you will. All right, the Cash App is letting you do a bunch of stuff. Right, they got their boost program where you can initiate a boost. They're switching it up every day. I just checked this morning. Whole Foods 10% boost was available in my neighborhood. So I used it. Boost, you get a debit card. You get to personalize it, put your name on it. You can put a little Bitcoin sign on it. You can do whatever you want. And then you go and you spend it at partner merchants and you get a little discount. The Whole Foods 10% discount. If you're Amazon Prime member too, you get that discount as well. Pretty dope. On top of that, they're letting you stack sats, excuse me. They're letting you buy Bitcoin, sell Bitcoin, send Bitcoin, receive Bitcoin, Bitcoin only too. So you can stack sats on the Cash App if you so please. Now they have Cash App investing, letting you stack stonks as well. If you don't have to stack the stonks. I know a lot of you complain about stacking stonks, but if you want to, it is there, and you don't have to buy a whole share. If your favorite company is just a little bit too expensive for you, can buy a little bit of $1 of that stonk. Okay, you can stack slivers of stonks now, and because Cash App is directly connected to your bank account, you're not gonna have to wait 4 to 5 days for that money to hit your account. You can start investing today. All right. Cash App Investing is a subsidiary of Square and member SIPC, okay? And when you download the app, make sure you use the code STACKINGSATS. That's one word, STACKINGSATS. Stacking Sats. You're going to get $10. If you haven't downloaded the app yet, use that code. And then Cash App's going to send $10 to our good friends at Owls Lacrosse in Chicago, a charity very near and dear to our heart, Owls Lacrosse. Enjoy this episode with Whit. It was a very cool conversation. Good whiskey conversation, too. Shout out to Heller Whiskey. Very good bourbon. What is up, freaks? Welcome back to Tales from the Crypt. It's your boy Marty Bent here on a Thursday night, sipping on some, what are we drinking here? Weller, the original wheated bourbon, special reserve, brought to you by tonight's guest, Whit Gibbs, the co-founder and CEO of Hashr8OS, and the host of the Hashr8 podcast. I found him this week. Welcome to the podcast, Whit.
Thanks, Marty. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks for coming by. Yeah, this happened. We threw this together in a few days. Somebody forwarded me your latest episode of the Hashr8 podcast. I listened to it. I've been becoming more fascinated with mining by the day, and I don't think mining gets enough tick on this podcast. I wanted to bring you in. I really enjoyed the conversation that you had with your co-host. Who do you co-host that with?
So the show is with myself, Crypto Chris Walken, Mean Hash, and Whale Bearman. Yeah, man.
Yeah, really a quick 30-minute rip. And I really wanted to expand on some of the topics that you guys talked about, particularly the phasing out of S9s with the upcoming halving, and the efficiency of the current Asics on the market and ones that will be coming on the market. But first, let's start. Like, what's your backstory? This is Tales from the Crypt. What's your tale? How did you end up starting a mining business?
Yeah, so I bought the top in 2017. All in, actually, literally all in. Quit my day job the day I bought Bitcoin and ETH in December of 2017.
You sent it
all the way in.
What was going through your mind?
This better work, because I had, married with 2 kids. When I told my wife, hey, look, I'm going to walk away from a lucrative sales job and go full-time into crypto, which I didn't know anything about, and neither did she. She just looked at me and was like, all right, well, I've trusted you this far. Better work out. So did like quote unquote crypto just hop into your mind during the mania of 2017, or had you, like, any touch points before that? There were a few before that. So I at one point had owned a business where I sold cartomizers for electronic cigarettes. And this was in 2013. And somebody had tried to buy a big portion of those off of us in Bitcoin, and we turned them down. So it was the first time I'd ever heard anything about it, but it was fake money, and no one knew what to do with it at that point in time. And then that was the last that I'd heard of it until the mania. And then once the mania hit and I started to see that, okay, this actually has legs. And then I was having a conversation with one of my mentors, and he mentioned to me that, Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, it was like somebody hit the reset button on the economy. So if you really focused on an area, you could become the authority in that area in the next 10 years. And to me, that was exciting. As an entrepreneur, you're always looking for opportunity. And it just seemed to me like the best opportunity to apply, what I'd worked towards my entire life to one focused area. So
what was your background before crypto?
Sales. Yeah, sales. I was in business development. I helped to rebuild a sales program for a website that it's called puppyspot.com. It's basically the largest online dog brokerage in the world. Boss. They do about $50 million in puppy sales a year. Yeah. So I was part of that team to build that platform, and then from there into crypto.
So what came in at the top? What was your first move?
My first move was to go all in on Ripple at about $3.
Hey, you touched the stove right away.
Oh, man.
Sometimes it takes a bit of time.
I rode that one all the way down. I remember
Did Brian Kelly teach you how to buy it?
I fortunately was in before BK pitched it on CNBC. But the worst mistake I ever made was showing my wife our portfolio at the top and not selling. So, my rule now is if I ever feel the need to show my portfolio to anyone, I immediately have to sell everything, because that's definitely the top. So wrote it all the way down, literally lost almost everything that I put in, and then got locked in with a couple of really good traders, learned from them, was fortunate to build everything back up. Then I linked up with my co-host of the show and my co-founders of Hashr8 at a conference in Chicago, and they started making fun of me for not being very, very good at mining. So we, worked towards building a platform that was simple enough that I could use it.
And okay, so let's talk about Hashr8OS. Yeah. What are we doing with Hashr8OS? It's an operating system. We were talking before. I'm a little bit ignorant to the different operating systems. I was saying I know Brains pretty well, but that's more targeted towards firmware. You were telling me Hashr8 is more focused on the software side, correct?
Yeah, so Hashr8 is a Linux-based operating system. We built it custom to run on Asics, GPUs, FPGAs coming soon, and really it is designed to help you manage and operate your machinery as efficiently as possible so that you can maximize profitability. So we've started, at a very base level, focused on GPU miners, and we've continued to scale, adding more features and functionality so that it can be used by everyone. Linux is often looked at as the most complicated kind of operating system. Most people will gravitate towards Windows because they assume it's what's easiest. But what we're seeing with Hashr8 is people actually move away from Windows to Hashr8OS because it's not as complicated as it used to be. And we also provide a high level of support so that anyone who needs that assistance, we will walk them through the entire process. So we have a Discord set up where anyone can come in. We'll help them troubleshoot any problems that they have, get set up, get them set to mine efficiently, and then they're off to the races.
So when you say help people mine as profitably as possible, are you talking about controlling fans from far away, or switching like in a nice hash situation from chains that are most profitable at any given time?
Both.
Okay.
Yeah, so mining is complex. I mean, you've got your SHA-256, which there it's mostly tuning your machinery, making sure that you've got your overclock settings properly. When you go into the GPU realm, there's a whole nother bag of tricks. So we talk about which coins to mine, how to mine those most efficiently, what are your overclock settings, which pools are going to be the best for you, all of those things. It's all brought into one.
Yeah, and what was it like in the research phase putting this product together? What was the learning curve like for you?
Fortunately, I have partnered with some amazing people. So my co-founders have years of experience. I mean, mining since 2011. So my learning curve was great. Theirs, they brought that skill set to the table already.
Yeah. I'm mining since 2011. Isn't
that crazy?
Right. And that's, mining's gone through a lot of evolutions, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we've gone through from CPU to GPU to FPGA with ASICs and Bitcoin particularly.
Yep.
One person I follow on Twitter is always like been an OG miner's not so fast. And
he's the man.
He's somebody from far away that I've always been watching, and he seems like he has his process down pat. Yeah. So if you are only in this, sort of to mine for profit, GPU mining particularly, would you recommend people just go out and do this, or do you think it's for a very specific type of person?
So I think it can be for anyone, but you do have to research. So mining is a business. I think there's a lot of people that look at it like a hobby. There's a lot of people that look at it like a get-rich-quick scheme. Both of those tend to not be profitable. But if you approach it like any other business owner would approach a normal business, you'll be fine. Start with research, start slow, get one card, figure out how to get one card set up to mine properly, and then scale. Learn how to roll your profits into more machinery and more equipment, and learn how to sell at the right times, flip your machinery at the right time, your miners at the right time, so that you can then ROI in different ways.
Yeah. So do you find people that are mining professionally are mining to accumulate tokens or accumulate Bitcoin or accumulate US dollars?
So every miner has their own preferences, but usually there is a percentage of whatever they're mining that they'll hodl. And then, of course, they'll liquidate what they need to cover their costs. Mm-hmm. Now, it just depends on their risk appetite. So some people are more speculative in the way that they mine. So they'll find a shit coin that maybe is just launched, and they will mine as much as they can until the difficulty increases, and they'll hold that for the pump. But then there's some people like Asic miners, specifically SHA-256, who are mining Bitcoin. They're running a business, and they have overhead like most people couldn't imagine. So they need to make sure that they're getting rid of some of that Bitcoin on a daily, weekly, monthly basis, so they can cover power, their OpEx and their CapEx.
All right. Let's focus on SHA-256. This is a Bitcoin podcast. I'm probably going to get some shit for talking about even mining shit coins, but I don't care. Mining fascinates the fuck out of me, and I want to learn more about it. So that's why I brought you in with SHA-256 with ASICs these days. Let's talk about the evolution of them. So they're getting more efficient over time. We have the S9 still running, and they were launched, in June of 2016?
Yeah, about 4 years ago. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it's a 4-year life cycle. Before that, what was the life cycle of a typical ASIC or miner on the?
It was honestly before my time, but when Bitcoin first launched, it was CPU mining, right? So you'd be able to make what we would consider a substantial amount of Bitcoin now just using your computer.
Yeah.
And then that gauged up to GPUs, and then from there, FPGAs had a little place in history. And then the ASICs started to come out. And since the ASICs came on, which obviously ASICs do one thing very well, right? Application-specific integrated circuits. They focus on Bitcoin, and they destroy that network and make a ton of money for the people who are using them. And that's just been the focus since then. So since those have launched, I think the S9s are really they're the granddaddy. They're the marquee. They're the one that I think has proven to be the most efficient, the most profitable for the longest period of time. And who knows, with the way that hardware is scaling, they may go down as the cult favorite of all ASICs that were ever released. Like if you look back at sneakers and you think like the original Jordans, S9s might be the original Jordans.
Yeah. I mean, they're still, it blows my mind that some are still operational after 4 years, considering the short life cycles of mining hardware before that. And it's crazy. ASICs didn't come on until after the first halving, too. I actually did some research earlier this week. FPGAs were the dominant mining hardware, well, at least publicly, the dominant mining hardware in 2012 when we had the first halving. Do you see the advances in ASICs with like the M20Ss and the S17s continuing that sort of long life cycle?
I think that the life cycle is going to shorten because the space is more competitive. And I say that cautiously because it's not proven that although you hear a lot about the next release of ant miners and the Canaans, and you hear that they're going to be rushing out their next batch of ASICs. Who knows how fast they'll actually be able to produce those? So I think that we're looking at more of a 2-year life cycle from here on with ASICs. I don't know that we'll see another run like we're seeing with the S9s.
Interesting. Do you see like an ASIC commodification point, like where sort of we hit a plateau where there's not many more improvements that can be made?
Some would say that there is a level of diminishing returns that we'll see with the ASICs. I think it's just too early to call. We're coming off of a period where Bitcoin's price action has been a little weird. 2018 was a pretty nasty correction, and 2019 was what it was. There were a lot of people who were still mining profitably, but it wasn't necessarily the easiest for some of the Bitcoin miners that were out there. But now, it's just too hard to tell. There's so much more competition coming online with the ASICs, so many more ASIC manufacturers that want to get in the mix, that I think the space is going to get more and more competitive. And hopefully, like with all areas of competition in business, that will make the conditions more favorable for the consumer, for the end user, and hopefully will increase the efficiency of the machines and potentially drive down the cost.
Yeah. No, it's, again, infinitely fascinating to me because especially 11 years into Bitcoin, obviously China dominating mining has been the narrative, and it seems that things may be shifting away from China, but like how imperative do you think it is that mining shifts away from China, Bitcoin specifically?
Yeah, it's important that we try. It seems to be a losing battle.
Why do you think that?
Right now, because of the logistics of it all, to get ASICs from anywhere or from China to anywhere else in the world, it takes quite a long time. Whereas the Chinese miners can get them quickly, so quickly, in fact, that they can actually buy them, mine profitably, and then sell them to the Western world in a much more extended period of time. Now, there are people who I think would like to produce ASICs elsewhere. But realistically, like with everything else, when it comes to electronics, I mean, just imagine what would the price of your iPhone be if Apple manufactured all of the parts in the States? Yeah. Then it's just not efficient. It's not, cost-wise.
Yeah. No, that brings up the question of foundries, right? There's 4 foundries in the world, maybe 2 where the efficient ASIC production makes sense, in TSCM or TSMC. TSMC. I always get my acronyms messed up. And then another one in South Korea, correct? That TSMC is in Taiwan, correct?
Yeah. And then you have Global Foundries, you have Samsung.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And that's been something I've been talking on this podcast every once in a while, is we need to get a fucking foundry here in the States if we want to be competitive in the long run. And it's an open-ended question. Like, what is going to incentivize that to happen? Is Bitcoin going to have to be the impetus that makes that happen? I don't know.
I think that it's a great concept. It would be awesome to see. Those other foundries, though, this is, ASIC chips are one, or Bitcoin-specific ASICs are one of their products, right? If you think about how big Samsung is, to think that they would devote more attention than they already are to just producing something for Bitcoin, when the market is really still so small, it's not justifiable for them. For something to start in the States, I think Bitcoin's total market cap would need to get to a place where it would justify the spend, because it does. It's a lot of money to get one of those things started. Yeah. And I know that there have been some players that have tried. I think Intel gave a good run at it, and I don't think that panned out well for them. But who knows? Innovation can continue to occur. We're in a disruptive era where people are always looking to disrupt existing businesses, existing technology. I'm hopeful. I think it would be great.
No, I do too. No, do you think Bitcoin mining particularly is something I tweeted out earlier, is a issue of national security in the long run if Bitcoin is to be successful, with that assumption in mind?
I think that if the United States doesn't get their shit together pretty quick and start to pay more attention to it and really incentivize Bitcoin mining facilities to come here, they will get left in the dust. Whether it's a national security issue, I wouldn't say that yet. But I do think that from an economic standpoint, we're losing the race, and our government doesn't seem to care. But it's all part and parcel with the way that the government has viewed tech to an extent for the last 10 years, right? If you think about it, a lot of the tech talent in the United States now comes from elsewhere. If you look at a lot of the Silicon Valley startups that are huge multi-billion-dollar companies, a lot of their talent is from Russia or India or China. There's just not enough focus on that here yet.
Yeah. Are we losing our grip? Is Rome falling?
Oh, man. So with my in-laws are, my wife was born into the Soviet Union, right? And we have these conversations all the time around the dinner table about America and how, we're headed in this really weird direction. And it's a total crapshoot right now. Who knows what could happen? It's going to take basically a new generation of people to make the push for these things, which always brings the questions: are there enough innovators left? Are there enough people who really want to do something like this, who want to take that horse by the reins and actually drive it?
No, I feel the same exact way. God, I hope so. But very similarly, the reason what my aha wake up moment with America going down a bad path was actually caused by a Soviet as well. The CIO at the firm I used to work for, freaks have heard this story a bunch of times on this podcast, but I'm not sure if you've heard this yet. I used to work for a Russian man who grew up in the USSR and immigrated to the US in 1994. And in 2012, we were having a portfolio meeting, just talking about investment ideas and stuff. And we got on dystopian futures, and he looked at me. He was like, "Marty, when I moved here in 94, I cried when I walked through the airport. I had tears coming down to my eyes. The natural feeling of freedom I'd never felt in my life. Ever since 2001, America's slowly turning into the Soviet Union I ran away from." And that one conversation changed my life forever. I think I was like, "What the fuck, Dimitri? What's going on?" And that's part of why I've been so dedicated to Bitcoin for the last however many years. Because I think this is an opportunity to sort of take the power back and curb the state a bit and curb the encroaching Soviet Union-esque government that's coming to America after the Patriot Act specifically.
It's funny that you mentioned that. I'm the oldest of four, and over the holidays, having a conversation with my two sisters and my brother, I posed the thought that they actually are more communist than they would imagine. And I laid out, because most people talk about socialism, but they don't realize that communism is the ideal form of socialism. I
think they're interchangeable in my mind.
Well, if you think about it, if there's a governmental system where everything is equal and the state provides for everyone, that really is communism. It's just never worked anywhere ever before. And I think that we're still naive to say that, it could work here. But it doesn't. And I agree with you in saying that Bitcoin is a way to take that back. That is one of the most exciting things about it, is it does level the playing field in a way that, the power for the ability for people to regain power in their life is, if it's not grabbed now, it's going to be gone.
No, we are at a critical junction in human history.
Agreed.
Are you optimistic? Pessimistic?
I'm an optimist eternally.
Yeah.
Probably to a fault. Yeah.
I am as well.
Yeah. What if you're not? What's the sense? You know
exactly.
what I mean?
It's not why be? Oh, excuse me. Sorry. Somebody just broke into the studio.
It's all good. They want to join.
Yeah, they were trying. Nobody ever uses this room, so she's probably like, "Who the fuck is this?" Was that a rude excuse me? Was I just too brash there?
No, I think it was fine.
Okay, good. Fine, yeah. Excuse me.
We're just drinking bourbon and talking about Bitcoin. Come on.
Do you guys want to come learn? Yeah. No, it is do you think, I know we're optimists. Sometimes I look out though and I want to shake people, wake the fuck up. And I don't want to make this too, like
political.
Political. Bitcoin's inherently like drives people to talk about politics.
It's true.
At the end of the day, like
It's true.
Bitcoin is an apolitical tool, but it drives people. It draws in people with political thoughts.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fuck.
So what do you think about that? So when you look at the Bitcoin community, I think most would say that they lean libertarian.
Yeah.
Would you agree with that?
I mean, see, that's why I don't like being labeled. Like, I probably like have some thoughts that libertarians would agree with. Definitely impartial to the Austrian business cycle.
Sure.
But I do recognize that at some level, centralization is inevitable in these systems. Like, I don't think you're just gonna have fucking like a libertarian utopia ever.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think that's realistic. But yeah, it definitely does. I think the libertarians definitely caught the bug first, right? The first people to talk about Bitcoin was the Free State Radio in New Hampshire. First people to price Bitcoin were newliberty.com, libertarian driven. So I definitely think it hooked them in first, but I would argue that Bitcoin is for anybody. Right?
Agreed.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts on, and I know we talked a little bit about this before, what are your thoughts on the state of the people that are currently servicing the Bitcoin and the crypto community? I know in my last podcast I went on a little bit of a rant, but let's throw that to you so I don't have to start this off. What do you think of that?
Like, get more specific.
So my personal belief is that Bitcoin has attracted a lot of really great people with solid ideals, but it's also brought the leeches and the opportunists.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So, my last year was basically spent going to conferences to learn because I dove in. I wanted to figure this out. And what I realized from a lot of these conferences is that most of the people don't give a shit about anything but money. And given enough time, I think they turn everything back into the current system, just surrounded by with them at the helm. Yeah, exactly.
Right. Yeah. No, that definitely agree. And it depends on what conference you go to, I would argue.
Agreed.
Like the North American Bitcoin Conference is the epitome of that mentality. I had the pleasure or the displeasure of going last year, and I was just like, oh my god, Brock Pierce is here, fucking Jeffrey Tucker's on stage, like fuck all these people. Yeah, it's a double-edged sword, right? You get the good people, in my opinion, and then you get some of the worst as well. Which is like, yeah, how do you like, and that's what you were talking about in the podcast that you dropped last Friday was like scammers and how do we self-police them?
Yeah, and that's important. A lot of people think you only vote in November, but you vote every day with your spending dollar, right? You vote with your attention, you vote with your likes, you vote with all of these things that you can dedicate to either something that's going to move things in a positive direction or in a negative direction. And we get baited into doing a lot of dumb shit, and I'm guilty of it too, right? Like you'll catch yourself, watching something that is, giving credence to, a content creator that maybe doesn't deserve it, or shit. I've been guilty of buying a shit coin and flipping it for Bitcoin, even though I know there's no merit to the coin itself.
No, it's there's that, and then you were talking about like particularly people who bring John McAfee on their fucking podcast for clicks. We will never bring John McAfee on Tales from the Crypt. Don't worry, I would never like use him to pump the podcast.
And listen, if there and for me it was specifically about bringing him on a mining podcast, right? Like he's built a very successful brand for himself, and once upon a time, I mean, shit, like 90% of the computers that I've owned have come with McAfee pre-installed. So I can't knock the guy. He's clearly built something successful for his life. But when it comes to mining, my qualm was, where's the value add there? Like yes, he's smart. Yes, he's done very well for himself. But is that someone that you want to put on a pedestal for potentially new people that are coming into the space to look up to? I think no. But I'm one person with one opinion.
I think many people have that same opinion. Fuck John McAfee, man. Like who yeah, cool. McAfee antivirus is cool. He made him the fucking authority on Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies, especially after he's fucking pumping it. He was paying like charging people like $100,000 to pump their coin.
He got a Skycoin tattoo. He got a Skycoin tattoo, right? Like there's only one person that I respect on Twitter that has shitcoin tattoos, and that's Bitlord. And that's only because he's hilarious.
I do not fuck with Bitlord.
He's just funny.
He's funny.
I'm not taking his trading advice.
No,
but I think it's a comical account.
I don't fuck with Bitlord other than like I actually have appreciated his, and I have been sharing his videos from Beijing as he's in China as coronavirus is going around. Like that's actually he's been a good source for that story at least. Yeah. But when it comes to his advice in the crypto realm, I'm not like anybody who he's got tattoos of everything. It's like him and Ken Bosick have like tattoos of like all that shit.
Yeah. Oh man, I've got some funny Ken stories. Ken's a character.
I hope you're doing well, Ken. I know you had a rough patch there.
Yeah, Ken's a good guy.
He's from Philly. I grew up in the town next to you. You don't know it though. There's so many fucking characters in this space. How do you try to filter?
So when it comes to now that I have kids, this has always been since the kids were born. My filter has always been: is this someone that I would leave alone with my children?
That's like, a very good filter.
If the answer is no, then I don't want to spend time around you either. And the reason is just it's your association. You hear it all the time, and it's cliche, but you become your association. And if I wouldn't trust you to imprint on my 5 and my 2-year-old, I mean, mentally I'm only 12, so why would I want to, risk my adolescent brain around you?
I'm gonna say I'm still a kid in my mind.
Oh man, stay young. That's it.
Yeah,
that's what it's all about.
No, I like that heuristic though. Would I leave this person with my kid? And as somebody who's about to be a father, I think that'll become more present in my mind.
Yeah, man. This is like the most exciting time, to be honest. Like I'm one of those guys that totally geeks out on being a dad. Like now that I've got kids, when we had our first child, I was just wishing that I'd done it sooner, because it's such a cool experience. And it's totally vain because you now have a little copy of yourself and, everything they do right, it's up, I help with that. That's half mine. That's me. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I'm pumped. I'm very pumped. I kept it on the DL for a while, freaks. I've only recently been talking about it. Because again, like the whole privacy thing in this space too is important, but it's inevitable. There's no way I'm going to have it. I got to a point where I was like, I'm going to have this kid and never talk about it. Like,
good luck.
Is that going to be possible?
Good luck. You're totally going to be the dad that whips out the phone whenever you go to meetings. You're like, check this out.
We've been talking about social media policy. It's like a weird conversation to have. Like,
never post them. Never.
No,
you can't.
No.
Well, so our co-founder, me and Hash, his day job is he manages a lot of very important data, and he has some great insights on personal security and the protection of your data, and he shared a lot of tips. What we have basically done as a family is we've created our perfect persona profiles, which you create the ideal version of yourself on the social media platforms that are going to get scraped by marketers and your insurance companies and things of that nature. And it will actually help you keep your rates low.
Social credit scores are coming, people. Yeah. And they're already here.
It's true. Well, so he had an example of his brother-in-law. He had an example of his brother-in-law who had purchased some mountain climbing gear for a friend. And because he purchased it on his credit card and it was like extreme mountain climbing gear, they canceled his life insurance.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
What the fuck?
Yeah. So that for me it really highlights the importance of cryptocurrency, specifically the privacy coin aspect, to shield your transactions, because that's coming in a very big way. It's already here, but I think that we're going to start to see it, and it's going to be less transparent over time.
Yes. That's actually what I wrote about in the Bent today, in the newsletter I write. There was an article in CNET that was published earlier this week. It explained how teenagers, how Zoomers are basically creating shared accounts on Instagram to fuck with the tracking algorithms.
Nice.
So they'll have like 20 using one account, and the algorithm thinks they're in 40 different places across the world, and so they can't really track their metadata. But that was very cool. But what I gleaned from that was like, holy shit, we have teenagers scared of being tracked. Like, what world are we building for our children right now? And what world do we want to fucking live in? Like, where you have fucking 16 and 17-year-olds having to fucking create unique ways to evade tracking, like tracking algorithms on these apps. Like, they weren't told to do this. They like just got creeped out and did it innately.
How terrible. I just thinking about being a teenager and living in that world scares the crap out of me. Imagine.
But like they weren't told like you're being tracked.
Oh, they just know.
Yeah.
Yeah. They just know the level of paranoia there. Well, and that's like it now in schools in the States. And 5 years from now, you'll witness this. As early as kindergarten, they start doing active shooter drills in schools. And
it's fucking disgusting, man.
Yeah, man. And that was baffling to me. And, my daughter was going to a Christian school in Florida, and it was private and gated, police on staff there, and they're still doing these drills. And to me, that was just mind-blowing. Imagine what must go through a 5-year-old's head when the teacher's talking about
like traumatizing
finding
shit.
Exits, like hiding under your desk, It reminded me of when I was in elementary school, we had bomb drills,
Yeah.
and you'd hide under your desk, and we would always joke about how, like, if a bomb hits the school, this wooden desk isn't going to do anything, But I can't imagine what kids must go through now. It's crazy. It's like your youth is stolen.
That, and like, how ass backwards is it? Like, you're just mentally preparing them for that instead of like focusing on mental health of the people that would like cause that act, right?
Yeah.
It's lazy, number one.
Yep.
I think. Is it very effective? Questionable.
Well, and what causes that? What leads a kid to be in such a tough spot? Exactly.
It's
just one of those things that, are we too far gone? Is the problem too advanced to be able to fix it, or do we need to stay in a reactive state like the schools are doing and just teach the active shooter drills? I don't know. That's a question for somebody smarter than me.
Right. Yeah. I'm pretty dumb too. Or not too. I'm not calling you dumb. I'm dumb. I don't know the answer to these questions either. But it just off the bat, it's like, this doesn't seem like the right way to go about it. Just scare the fuck out of everybody.
It's true.
I mean, yeah, it's just conditioning.
Yep. Well, and now we have our oldest in school in Europe. She's in Latvia in kindergarten. And it's like, I remember school, it's easygoing. There's no thought of any violence. It's different. It's different. I don't know. I don't know if it's just the way that society is now. Who knows? But it reminds me so much of my childhood growing up, the way that they have it now over there.
Well, it's fucking pervasive here. Like, going back to Miami, actually, when I was coming back from the North American Bitcoin conference in Miami last year, I was coming back to New York in the airport in Miami-Dade, and going through TSA, there was like it was bifurcated. You had like the first half, and then there was like a sniffing dog, and then you had the second half that was going to go through the scanners. You had to go through the scanners after the fucking dog sniffed you. But in front of me was like a 6-year-old with a backpack, and he wasn't allowed to walk with his parents as the dog sniffed him, and he was like scared shitless of this German Shepherd up in his grill, sniffing his face, and I'm standing there like, are we really putting up with this right now?
Crazy.
Do you have to sniff the 6-year-old? Like, are you fucking kidding me?
Does Bitcoin fix this though?
Yes. I don't know. I don't know if it fixes that.
Yeah.
It fixes that if it is an earnest way to starve the state and they can't pay TSA workers. Maybe. Is that possible? I don't know.
So to that end, what do you think about and I don't want to get too far into the Wuhan virus, but how do you feel that this crisis may benefit Bitcoin? Do you think it will?
I think it, well, actually, I would turn the tables here. It's my podcast. I'm going to ask you that question. Do you think it'll affect the mining supply chain? That's what I've been thinking of. Like,
I think that it may lead to some overtrading in the Asian markets because just like us, if they're sitting at home with their computer and they're not allowed to leave their house, they may...
Is that why Tesla hit 905
the other day? They may be trading a little bit more. I saw an article today about the state seizing a mining facility in China, but I need to go back and do a little fact checking on that. It doesn't make much sense considering that all of the state, I mean, from what I know from the interviews that we've done, all of the state agencies are aware of all of the mining facilities that exist. So it's not like any of them are done covertly.
Yeah, Venezuela was able to target Bitcoin miners and seize them. I would imagine China might be better equipped to do that as well.
Yeah, well, my understanding is they're all being paid under the table. So the miners are all paying people or paying off the appropriate agencies. And I think it's okay the way that it's being done. I don't think there's any grief being given from Beijing that these people need to be shut down. I have a sneaking suspicion that the Chinese government is pretty happy that the majority of the Bitcoin mining is being done in China.
You think they're hoarding any?
I mean, shit, if I was a government, it's a nice hedge. You know what I mean?
No, that's a topic I've been covering on this podcast and my newsletter a lot too, is the long con of trying to get oil contracts priced in anything but the U.S. dollar. And China and Russia have been leading the way in that and denominating oil contracts in their native currencies. And if the petrodollar is truly the reserve currency of the world, and you have this apolitical currency in Bitcoin that can completely let you bypass that, like, it would make sense, right?
Well, and you've got the initiative out of China. What is it? The One Road.
Yeah, where they're dumping like $4 trillion in Africa or something like that.
Everywhere. So in Europe too, they're going
it's 5G.
Yeah. Well, they're going to all of these different countries and they're saying, we'll help you rebuild your infrastructure. And it's a tit for tat, right? We'll help you do this. You give us that. And the United States has a lot of their power because they have NATO bases all over the world, right? We go in and we say, okay, we're going to build a base here. We'll staff it with troops. We'll protect you. And in exchange for that protection, you will base your currency on USD. Right? Now, what happens if those bases get kicked out and Chinese bases are put in? Now, would that happen? Who knows? Could it happen? For sure.
And if it does happen, though, like, who's going to trust the yuan and the renminbi?
A lot of the people who would trust it, or a lot of the countries that would trust it, their currency is so devalued anyway, it doesn't matter.
China's no better, I don't think.
Oh, well, China doesn't care. I mean, just like it's kind of an indiscriminate thing. It's kind of it's pieces on a board. It's monopoly, just on a global scale. Like, you just want to get the right pieces in the right places, and as long as you've got those, the other ones are just kind of gravy. Like, I mean, I don't want to shout out any specific countries, but there's definitely places in Europe that are less than, or viewed as less than, because maybe they're landlocked, maybe they don't have very good GDP, maybe they don't really bring a lot of quote unquote value to the table. They're just kind of there. I think those would be the first that would shift from the U.S. to China.
But why would you shift from the U.S. dollar to China when Bitcoin exists? Would you?
So
I think Bitcoin throws a whole wrench in a long-term game a lot of these countries have been playing.
Agreed. And I think we're starting to see that with the stands. There's a lot of...
With the what?
The stands. The former Soviet Union countries, Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan. We're seeing them gravitate towards Bitcoin. Uzbekistan said that they were launching their own mining pool. We've had Belarus come out and say that they would like to build state-owned mining facilities.
Georgia led the way.
Georgia.
It's not a stand, but led the way.
It's in the stand region. And Kazakhstan has been, I mean, it is the hub now for that area of the world where people are looking to build mining facilities there. Apparently the government's very easy to work with. Power is incredibly cheap.
Do you believe the conspiracy theory that Borat was like a psyop to make Kazakhstan look worse than it is, and it's actually a paradise?
That would be hilarious. I will say I did work with someone from Kazakhstan, and she was the nicest person ever. So who knows? Who knows?
It wasn't his sister, was it?
No, it wasn't his sister. It may have been his wife. But no, it's going to be a very interesting thing over the next decade to see who adopts Bitcoin, because we already know Russia is big on it. Russia's devoted a considerable amount of their capital reserves to buying Bitcoin.
Really?
Yeah, well, they announced that, I think,
a couple of years ago. At Martic on Twitter? Is he the source for this?
No.
Okay.
No, this is a legitimate source. And it's to get around U.S. sanctions. Anytime there's sanctions that are posed.
I mean, the rumors that Venezuela has been buying medical supplies from Russia with with Bitcoin. I've had some pretty credible sources say that it's probably going on.
I don't doubt it. I mean, we've already shown that we're behind the times on how to track these kinds of things. So if you were going to do something like that, why not go with Bitcoin? Why not? Iran is stacking it. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, it appears to be that all of the people that we would least like to be paying attention to this currency are paying far more attention than we are.
Yeah, is it bad that makes me like...
excited?
Yeah, not excited, but it's also like... It's so conflicting, right? Because I'm an American, and I love the ideals that America was founded on. I think we've gotten far away from those ideals. I would like to get back to them. Oh, man, am I going to get in trouble for saying this? But, like, it's like, I don't like the sanction. I don't like weaponizing the U.S. dollar. I think it's fucking terrible. And when I see... And again, it's not like the government of Iran. I don't want the government of Iran mining Bitcoin. I like seeing individual Iranians. I've met Iranians. I like the Iranians I met. They're good people. Like, if they're able to benefit from Bitcoin, I'm happy. Is that treasonous?
It's not. I don't think the people of Iran are benefiting, to be fair, but I do agree 100% with what you're saying as far as it being an exciting value proposition. The weird thing is that, I mean, I can't speak for Iran. I've never been there, but the other places aren't that bad. Like we think that a lot of like Russia is the evil empire because we're raised to be indoctrinated with that. And it's just not the case. It's not the case. I mean, there's stereotypes in every culture, right? You go elsewhere in the world. I mean, the stereotypes that they paint of Americans are not great. I will say that Iran and Venezuela are two terrible places that I'd never wish upon anyone. But I think that their adoption of Bitcoin shouldn't be a positive or a negative. It should just be a catalyst for the U.S. to get their head out of their ass. Because, I mean, it's here. It's not going to be stopped. You've got billionaires across the United States that are investing in Bitcoin. At some point in time, somebody has to pay attention.
Well, maybe that is the U.S. paying attention, just the individual billionaires, potentially some oil companies, potentially software companies, people like Jack Dorsey. Maybe that's how America gets in. Maybe we don't even fucking need Trump to be like, all right, we're going in.
Fidelity.
Fidelity just retweeted Parker Lewis's Bitcoin obsoletes all other monies. I was like, what the fuck? Like, let's go. But it's a fascinating question. Maybe that's the way America does get into Bitcoin. Just, I mean, well, the bit license sucks. We're speaking in a city with probably the most draconian Bitcoin laws in the world. So that might be a little contradictory. But I do think when it comes to Bitcoin particularly, I know the ICOs and all the tokens have problems with the SEC, but Bitcoin businesses in America, like River Financial, Unchained Capital, disclaimer, they're sponsors. Cash App, disclaimer, they're sponsor. Like in the States, like that's bullish to me, and I like seeing stuff like that.
Are you saying that the United States is built on business?
I like to think so.
It is. I mean, it is, and that's absolutely the case. The minute that changes, we're all fucked.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's a bad thing. I don't think that we should look at the demonization of business of late is problematic. Yes, there are some businesses that are too big. I can buy into that. I think that Facebook should certainly go away.
Yes. I mean, antitrust laws are in place for a reason. We should exercise them more liberally than we have in the last decade, I would argue.
I will agree with that. But there are some very good companies that are doing great things that America is built on. And it is the way that it is, and it's worked, to bucket now. Can we do this in like 5 generations when I'm dead and gone and my kids are dead and gone? Like that's all I would ask. If we're gonna go down this crazy rabbit hole where shit falls apart, can we just like wait 300 or 400 years?
Right. Wait till my family's had lived happy lives. No, but that's the thing, going back to like, we are at this junction, this crossroads, if you will, in my opinion. Like we were talking about the social credit, like we either have the Chinese state digital panopticon exported to the rest of the world, or we break free and move to a more sovereign world where you control your data. That's a thing. Like, and that's another topic we talk a lot about on this podcast is like, did we fuck up the internet with the first iteration, the way data is siloed into server farms and stuff like that?
So,
and would it be possible to have the internet in its current form without that shit? And if so, what's the fucking solution?
I think it's too far gone to backtrack at this point. I think that the way that it's already established is not easily walked back. Could it be? Sure. But I think that would take decades. Now, I do think that in the next 50 years, we will see everything shift towards public blockchains, where all of these processes we're seeing routed through central servers will be distributed on, I mean, in my opinion, proof of work algorithms that are on distributed blockchains across the United States or on a state level. In one of our conversations with the state of Ohio, I was talking with someone about building a mining farm there. And we just, we were just brainstorming and shooting the shit and having a very loose conversation about what if all state licenses, birth certificates, death certificates were all on public blockchains that were run through mining facilities that were independently owned, and you had miners competing over the ability to secure those networks, and they were paid in fiat. Like, forget paying in Bitcoin. What if you paid in fiat? Hear me out.
How would you do this?
I don't know, but we were just spitballing, just trying to figure it out, because I think that we're starting with such an obscure concept, and we're trying to pitch it to people who it's too obscure, right? Like, they don't understand transacting in anything other than dollars.
Well, that's what that was the point I made in the bend today. Let's stop thinking about the institutional money and the boomers. Let's go after the zoomers and just like have them rise up with it.
Yep. Then we got 20 years, right? So in 20 years, this will all be in place. It's the same as when I was in high school. It was the Legalize It campaign. Everyone wanted legal weed,
I
right?
remember that.
20 years later, it's legal everywhere, or it's going to be legal everywhere.
Yeah, it's not socially frowned upon anymore.
No. And that's all it is. If we can get the 15 to 20-year-olds now really buying in and talking about this, and I would argue that all of those people are on Twitter right now, posing as 18-year-olds on crypto Twitter.
Is there Twitter, TikTok, or Twitch? Like, that's what I'm like, where should we start like propagandizing this stuff?
Yeah, and that's what it's going to be, man. 20 years from now, everyone's going to be doing everything on the blockchain. We'll all be
everything on the blockchain.
Everything on the blockchain, to a fault, probably. I mean, there's already
things. Do you think so? Like, I'm like under the belief. I believe strongly that blockchains only work for very specific use cases. Money being the most important, and maybe like an app like open timestamps proving that data existed at a certain point in time. Like, that is like the two use cases of blockchain that I can think of that actually make sense in the long run.
Yep, you're right. But we'll have a lot of failures that come up. And I think a big lesson that we're going to see is people will try to do everything on the blockchain. One of the big failures is going to be social media on the blockchain. And that is something that will become nightmarish.
Twitch, bro.
Oh. You had to do it.
I went there.
There you go.
Yo, dude, come to Twitch.
That's, yeah, man. We talk. So that's our biggest qualm with Twitch, is that what is culturally acceptable changes so quickly. Like, there's things that if 10 years ago I would have said them, now I would be labeled as all kinds of god-awful things, and it's just the times change. Now imagine if I had sent a tweet 10 years ago and it was on a blockchain and I could never delete it, I could never walk it back in any way, shape, or form. I think those are, blockchain examples that will fail. Well, and it will be shown to fail.
I'll push back there. As they're talking, like, I had Andrew Torbo on the podcast,
okay.
CEO of Gab.
Mm-hmm.
And he would push back against this, and I'm sort of in the middle right now. I'm like, do I want to leave that on the internet? Would I not care? And his argument is like, don't ever say sorry. Like, hey, you may have fucked up in the past. You may have been a different person. You probably were a different person if you didn't agree with it. And if people try to go back in your history and paint you as a certain type of person in the current times, like, you shouldn't let them weaponize that data, right?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of power in changing your mind, though.
No, so exactly.
And I also think that to kind of buy into not, and I get where he's coming from. So I am a person that, you know, I believe if you're wrong, you should apologize quickly, be swift about it, and then right your wrongs. I don't think you should ever go back and apologize for behavior that you believe strongly in the past. The question is, when you're in your, let's say, early 20s, and you don't really know what you believe strongly in, but you're buying into herd mentality or saying something stupid or drunk tweeting, right?
Still guilty of that.
So, I mean, like, then what? Then is it not okay to say you're sorry? Then, like, you know, it's those situations that I think are where you would need to be able to walk them back.
No, I agree.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I think, like, when Andrew said that, I was like, oh, fuck. I was completely like, delete your tweets. Like,
got a lot of respect for him, though, man. What he's built is, I mean, that platform is amazing.
Yeah, it's, and I think the way Twitter's going right now, man.
The zero hedge thing was a tough one.
Dude, did they really ban Project Veritas, or is that like a false rumor I heard?
I haven't.
I heard that rumor today. I haven't like jumped in. I haven't jumped in. Yeah, I haven't jumped in to like see if it's
Well, it's so arbitrary. Like they took down the Bitcoin 2020 conference Twitter handle.
Yeah.
Well, why? I mean, I don't know the reasons behind it. But we were, you know, I was talking to them, and that happened, and it's just like they don't say anything. They don't say anything that's offensive or rude or threatening or racist or that would fit in any of those terms of service items, and they're just arbitrarily taken down. They've got a conference in 2 months.
Yeah.
How bad does that hurt? I mean, they got it back, but what if they wouldn't have? That would have impacted their business significantly, and there's nothing you can do about it. You can't sue Twitter for that. I mean, you could, but it's not going to work.
And people like to fall back on the argument like they're a private company, they can do what they want. But again, network effects, all that stuff that we talk about in Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, like Twitter has built up a network effect where it is, in my mind at least, a public square. There's a lot of reputation with Zero Hedge in particular. Michael Krieger from Liberty Blitzkrieg wrote a piece earlier this week, and he made a very good point. Like, you can't even go back, even though they're banned into perpetuity going forward, you can't go back and look at their tweets in the past. Mm-hmm. And Twitter, that's what I use for my news. That's my number one source for the newsletter. Yeah. I use it as a source for history, right? And now Zero Hedge's Twitter has been wiped from history. Like, it's just whitewashing over it. Like, even if you disagree with it, you can't even go cite it. Like, it's not there anymore.
And that's a shame, because they put out a lot of great articles. You know, it's funny, when I used to mentor people, and I always would cite a Zero Hedge article. And this is when I was mentoring for a group that, I mean, they were fairly the opposite of crypto Twitter, right?
What is that?
It was helping young people figure out how to get out of debt and get on the right track.
Well, and that's crypto Twitter. Bitcoin Twitter, I would argue, is on that track too.
Yeah. So, but it was just, we would use Zero Hedge. They had a lot of really great articles that they came out with that were apropos, were important for the times. And it was a shame when I saw that. I was sad, because ultimately, what is journalism if not just people's opinions that are, you know, rooted in some fact?
And that's the most fucked up part, is like, and that's a slippery slope, right? I mean, when you have one entity, in this case Twitter, acting as the arbiter of truth. Yeah. And they changed their, like, Francis Paulette from Bull Bitcoin in Canada tweeted out 2 days ago. He looked at their new policies, and they are going to try to highlight truth and hide what they deem to be not the truth. It's like,
And who controls it? That's the hardest part, is the people that are going to be controlling it are like the last people that you would want to control a narrative.
Exactly.
Twitter's going to be so woke, bro. It's going to be so woke.
So woke. I saw you tweet that earlier. If I'm calling you woke, I'm making fun of you.
It's so woke. Yeah.
But, like, I'm not going to fucking leave until I get kicked off. I'm sorry.
You're going to end up on Twitch.
Oh, God, no. I'll never end up on Twitch. I'll end up on Gab. I'm not going to end up on Twitch. You don't need to fucking put your social media company on a blockchain. You're an idiot if you think that. Sorry.
So, God, man. I hope that it doesn't go the way that we think it's going to go, or the way that it seems that it's going to go. I hope that discourse can still continue.
And That's the fucked up thing. I just recorded a podcast and posted it before you walked in here. Our weekly, I do a weekly show at Matt Odell, or a rabbit hole recap, and we talked about this at the end. Like, I don't think Jack Dorsey wants this to happen. Like, I've interviewed him too. I've looked him in the eyes. Like, I think he is actually down for the cause and is nostalgic for what Twitter originally was. When I sat down with him, he was like, Twitter, when we first started it, it was a communications protocol in my mind. It was just something where people could put messages out to the world, and that's like, he didn't say it directly, but like, again, like, I'm a big like, look people in the eyes and can read them, and like, I felt like he had this nostalgia for what Twitter used to be, and again, he was like Steve Jobs. He got kicked out, was asked to come back, and maybe when he was gone, the people in charge fucked up the app that he built, and that's why I think him funding open source developers for an open source social network protocol is sort of like a signal, like, hey, I know this isn't what I wanted it to be, and I'd like it to get back to this. And disclaimer, Jack Dorsey's other company sponsors the podcast.
You know, Jack is, I mean, I have a lot of respect for him, and I can't imagine what must be going through someone's head like that when their company gets so big so fast.
Right.
You know, you start something when you're a young person.
And you have governments approaching you like, you got to do this, you got to do that.
I mean, if you think about it, his platform is the chosen method of communication for the president of the United States.
Right.
Like, our president chooses Twitter.
By the way, Trump had the greatest troll of all time last night.
Which, I didn't see it.
It was like the Time magazine cover of him, like, Trump 2020, 2024,
oh, yeah.
2028, 2032.
Forever. But I mean, so that's it. I mean, like, that's his platform. And imagine now the burden on Jack when, I mean, let's face it, he started this as a cool thing to get an idea out there. He could not have imagined it would become what it is. No way. No. I don't think any of them could have. I don't think Mark Zuckerberg could have looked at the original Facebook and imagined that it would be.
No, the original Facebook was pigeonholed to harvard.edu email addresses. Like, he was just thinking about his college, not anything outside of it.
I mean, dude, I was a party promoter when we first got access to Facebook, and I remember it was the best thing ever because you could literally, I mean, that's all it was used for. We thought we were innovative because we could put a party flyer on there and send it to all of the girls on campus. And now, I mean, it's everything.
I've since, I mean, I'm still on WhatsApp and Instagram, unfortunately, but I've not been on Facebook in years.
I only use Facebook to keep in touch with relatives. I don't do Instagram, and I mean WhatsApp on occasion, but we're moving everything over to Signal now as a family.
Yeah. I'm only on WhatsApp for my college friends, and Instagram I only use to keep up with my family.
Okay.
I don't like post much. I just look at what my family's posting.
All right.
Yeah.
Your family's on Instagram. They're with it, man.
I'm trying here.
There you go.
I'm trying. We were supposed to talk about mining this whole podcast, but I told you we would drift into other topics.
Good. This is what bourbon will do to you.
Exactly. This is a great bourbon, by the way.
Glad you like it, man.
What makes this bourbon?
So
why are you particular about this bourbon?
I rarely see Weller, but Weller is the original recipe that spun off into Pappy Van Winkle.
Ooh.
Yeah. So it's really good. I think now it's actually made by Buffalo Trace. But it is, it's really smooth. And, you know, considering I've been in Latvia drinking Irish whiskey for the last 3 months, it's nice to come back to something with a little more sugar content.
The Latvia Bitcoin scene's popping. A good friend of mine, Manny Majinchis, the Crypto Voices podcast, he's there in Riga too. I love the HODL conference. Riga's, I fucking love, I mean, I've only experienced Riga in Latvia. I loved it when I was there. I did 4 days in Latvia, in Riga particularly. Great, small fucking city.
Yep.
Walkable.
Yep.
Good vibes, good food. Surprisingly good food. There's
Amazing
good steakhouses in Riga.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. It's a little hidden gem for sure. So my wife's family's from there. We've been going back and forth for the last 10 years. And, you know, we've got a little place that's about an hour outside of Riga. But everything is just clean there. The air is clean. We live out in the country. There's a huge garden. And when I say huge garden, I mean that aside from the winter months, if we don't kill it or pick it, we don't eat it.
Boss.
So, I mean, elk, deer, they have raybuck, which are smaller deer, really lean. And then there's wild boar. So basically our entire rotation is just boar, deer, elk, and clean veggies. It's great. Yeah. If you come this year for Hodl Hodl, we'll have you out. We'll do a barbecue for sure.
I would love to do that.
Yeah.
That's what I loved about Hodl Hodl is like on the, excuse me, burping. Outside the conference, they were doing like the Latvian style barbecues, which is something I've never seen.
Wait, did you go this year?
No, I didn't go this year. I was there last year.
I saw Matt.
Matt was there, yeah.
Yeah, I saw Matt. And this year I've
been trying to cut back on my Bitcoin conferences.
Smart.
I think they're jumping the shark a little bit.
Yeah, so we'll go back. We will do Hodl Hodl this year. We'll do Baltic Honey Badger, and then we may do a couple of others, but me too. I think in 2019 I did 8 conferences. This year I'll do 5. I count New York Blockchain Week as one conference instead of like 14 different ones. But
yeah, no, I'm cutting it down to 2. Now that you mentioned Blockchain Week, I'm not officially going to Consensus, but I live in New York. But I'll be like poaching people from the conference to do podcasts. And actually, haven't announced this yet and haven't locked it down yet, but I'm pretty sure we're going to be able to lock it down. We'll be doing a live rabbit hole recap at the Subculture Theater in Soho during Blockchain Week.
Nice. That'll be awesome.
That'll be our mini conference, drag people away from the shitty conferences. But
so I want to say something on that though, because coming from traditional businesses, Consensus is the only traditional conference like you would experience in other industries. So I know people give Consensus a lot of shit, but if you're in any other industry, that is what a conference looks like. And they do it pretty well. I'm not gonna lie. Like it's a well-produced conference. Yes, it's a lot of ICOs, but
no, I talk shit to like Matt and I may be leading a workshop at Consensus too. I'm gonna get in trouble. Bailey, I'm sorry.
I'm excited. This will be my first year at Consensus. Usually I've just come and gone to all of the events around Consensus.
That's the best. I mean, if you're in New York, that's the only thing. Like, why drop $3,000?
Yeah, I mean, I snuck in last year, but
boss. Yeah,
it's crypto. We're degens. That's just.
Oh, hey, we're not all degenerates, all right?
I'm not anymore.
I'm here trying to instill good hodl values, all right? To save your Bitcoin.
Good hodl values.
I just made that up on the go.
That's good. That's good.
Nah, so, like, honestly, like you said, like crypto's full of scammers. I do think, like, if you do go full circle and you come, like, you realize, that's the thing I've come to realize, and what I believe wholeheartedly is that a lot of the quote-unquote crypto people who are spinning up new blockchains and using complexity to sell that stuff don't realize the beauty in Bitcoin's simplicity.
I would agree.
Bitcoin needs to do if a blockchain is to be successful, and I would argue, like, if Bitcoin was to ever be flippant or something was to overtake Bitcoin, quote unquote, which I don't think will happen, but if it ever did happen, it would destroy the space for quite a while, because the whole value proposition is that this is supposed to be a store of Bitcoin, the first initial cryptocurrency that was successful. It's supposed to be a store of value into perpetuity, and if you destroy that possibility within the first 2 decades, like, why would anything else be able to attain that? Right?
That's true. The longer I'm in crypto, the more I see the value of Bitcoin. So I've got this theory that everyone starts as, on this broad spectrum where everything is cool. And then they'll go through their different shitcoin phases where they're like, oh, there's this one that's going to do this, and there's this one that's going to do that. And then given a little bit of time, you realize that Bitcoin's pretty damn awesome just by itself. And seeing the dedication and the tribalism around Bitcoin but it's inspiring. I don't think tribalism is bad. I think that the reason that ETH is falling apart right now is because they're destroying their tribe.
Let's dive into this.
Fuck ETH. I'm sorry. Did I say that out loud?
Say it louder.
No, so nothing is more disheartening as a miner than
Prague POW, dude. It's coming.
It was. Listen, I'm a fan of Prague POW.
Are you?
I am.
Why?
Because that will at least save ETH for the miners. What's happening now is you have ETH saying that they're going to go to staking. You got Vitalik coming out and basically
you can't have 1.x and 2.0 at the same time.
Well,
you can't.
I mean, you can't have anything with these because they don't do anything. Like constant to never is a very real thing, right? Like,
oh, that's my most famous Twitter thread on Twitter. I've been Nassim Taleb in The Black Swan has a passage. The more you wait, the longer you'll be expected to wait. So if you're expected to transition to proof of stake within 18 months, which was their initial goal. Mm-hmm. If you get to 18 months and it's not there yet, you'll be expected to wait another 3 months. And 3 months after that, if you're not there, you'll be expected to wait another 6 months. And then if you get there, you'll be expected to wait another year. And I've been collecting a thread of Ethereum POS transition deadlines since August of 2017, and they just added another one today. It's not happening in Q2 to 2020. They're pushing it to Q4.
It's not happening. It's not happening because to dream up a scenario where anyone in that community can get on the same page long enough to make one concerted effort is ludicrous.
Well, the most devs, dude. It's all about the devs. They add more devs. You add more community. You add more voices. You add more confusion. And so let's talk about it. Like, they are actively saying we're going to move to a system that makes your miners obsolete. What does that mean from a miner's perspective?
I mean, shit. Think of all the capital that has been deployed to support that network. How would you feel if you had spent millions of dollars on anything and someone immediately with the flip of a switch made all of it obsolete? Now you have millions of dollars worth of paperweights.
Bricks.
Exactly. It's
so short.
Well, and it doesn't make any sense. The move doesn't make any sense. So the claim that mining is bad for the environment is
false.
It's dumb. It's like calling someone a racist because you don't have something intelligent to say, right? Like, you got to think of something better. It's unsubstantiated, and you can claim whatever you want to claim, but there's nothing to back up those claims. A lot of the miners that are there, like, you look at the people who are mining ETH, they've got all of these GPUs that are not really consuming enough power that's going to damage an environment, and a lot of the power that they're drawing from is renewable anyway. It's not like they're burning coal to mine ETH. It's like the ETH community makes it seem like miners are burning dead children to fuel their.
That was the whole fucking selling point. It was like originally, and that's what pisses me off, is the whole changing in the narrative of what Ethereum was meant to be. And it was a virtue signal chain. Like, we're going to be the environmentally friendly chain. We're going to bring proof of stake. You're going to have the world computer. We're going to be Turing complete. All that is a red herring. Like, it's like bullshit. It's like, yeah.
ETH was a platform to launch ICOs.
Yes.
And now that Hester Pierce did you see that?
You got 3 years. You got 3 years to make a viable product.
You better go all in on ETH. That's going to pump. Hester Pierce is pumping that shit coin.
It's definitely going to pump. That's the thing that pisses me off. Like, a lot of this shit's going to pump too. It confuses the fuck out of people.
Well, okay. So what people have to understand is if you're going to go down that rabbit hole, you have to look at altcoins as leverage trading for Bitcoin. Right? If you're going to buy an alt, the only purpose that you would ever buy an alt is to flip it for more BTC later.
But I don't want to incentivize this because
this might not be the right podcast for that.
No, you can say that, and I agree with that. But like, most people aren't going to be good traders.
It's true.
Like, coming from a fund background, like, you can't just get into this shit and trade. Mm-hmm. Like, you're not going to know what to do.
It's true.
You're going to get your dick pushed in. Like, and the siren call to do it is loud. And it's appeasing, and it sounds good, and it's easy for a lot of people to get into. If you're out there thinking, I'm going to game the rest of the people, go fuck yourself. You're not going to do it.
It's probably true. Yeah. I mean, I lost all my money at first. I can't be the person to say that you're going to jump in and make a ton of money.
Yeah.
So tread carefully.
I mean, and I honestly, earnestly believe that, like, in the long run, Bitcoin will be winner take most, at least, if not like 98%, 99% of this total addressable market cap.
Agreed.
You're just better off dollar cost averaging it.
Agreed. Yeah. I mean, so I put out a tweet, I guess it was a year ago, August, where I said that we were going to put 10% of our household earnings towards Bitcoin every month. And we just treat it like a savings account. It's been really cool to, get my wife involved in that as well. But we put it in a savings, you know, and I did that this month as well.
I think that's what I do too.
And it doesn't matter what it costs. Like we just, you know, 10% of whatever we have goes to Bitcoin, and what it costs, it costs. You know, in the long run, we're going to be up. I mean, right now we're up because of when we've been buying, but it's funny how people forget it. Everyone assumes that when you buy it now, you're a trader. When, if you think of your 401k, you don't trade your 401k. Like maybe you have someone managing it for you, but you're not actively trading your 401k. If you are, you're an idiot, you know?
Yeah. And this is not to say that like trading, you can't be successful trading. It's to say that you are unlikely to be successful trading because very few people are.
You got to know yourself.
Yeah.
You got to know, like the first opportunity I had to move out of trading, it's super stressful.
That's like, it's so much easier DCAing. I'm like, oh my God, I can't imagine, like staring at charts. I don't have the attention span.
And people who are good at it, like Scott Melker, I have a lot of respect for him. He's the guy, and he'll put it out there. He's like, yeah, I looked at charts for 5 minutes today. And to me, that's like, he's like Rain Man. You know, like I can't do that. And good for him. I'm glad he can. That's just not me.
Yeah.
You know,
know
some
yourself.
people are gifted like that.
Know yourself.
Yeah.
It's especially in this space.
Yeah.
Because there's, again, the siren calls are loud, man. A lot of people make it seem like it's easy.
Yeah.
It's a quick buck.
Yeah. And there will come a time when it will seem very, very easy.
Yes.
And I think we're nearing that time. But
And you won't know when to get out.
Nope.
And some of my favorite, quote unquote, crypto personalities are traders. I fucking love Javis. I fucking love Kobe. I love those are those are OGs. Like
Yeah.
that's who like made me cognizant of Bitcoin. Like they were the early Bitcoin Twitter people, like Javis and Crypto Cobain and not so fast, not a trader, but like
not so fast as like a shitcoin expert.
Yeah.
Miner as well, and he's just a wealth of knowledge. Every time I have a conversation with him, I come away feeling more intelligent. Just, you know, he's one of those people, like you get around him and you can just borrow some of his smarts for a period of time.
Yeah.
Really, really good guy.
Hey, if you're listening, I'd love to talk to you.
Oh, I'm sure he would come on, no problem.
Yeah.
Not so fast as the man.
Yeah. No, and that's, but like freaks, if you're listening out there, and if you're listening out there, you're probably a Bitcoiner who doesn't give a shit about trading. But if you're not a professional trader, just don't fucking run into trading. It's not going to work out for you.
It's not worth it.
No.
It's not worth it. Enjoy your life.
Yes.
Enjoy your life.
Seriously.
It'll age you 5 years and 3 months. It's just, it was
Tough lessons learned.
2019 was by far, I think, the most challenging year of my life.
See, that was my 2015.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Loving every minute of it though, man. I wouldn't take a moment of it back. There's been a lot of lessons that have been learned. Made a lot of great friends too.
That too. Like, how great are the people that you meet in the space?
I love it. It's
Right.
great meeting people that are, I mean, like this conversation.
I'm loving this.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's not another industry where you could get together with someone this quickly and have like an intelligent conversation that isn't totally built around some kind of pretense or what can I get from you? What can you get from me? Here, it's genuine, you know? Like I sent out a tweet that I'm coming to New York City and I've got a bunch of random people on Twitter that I've never met before saying, hey, let's meet up and grab a drink. And I know that when I get together with them, we've got one thing in common. Chances are we're gonna hit it off. We're gonna be good friends, and we'll always have that one thing in common. You know, so it's been awesome, man. I wouldn't trade this time for anything.
No.
Anything.
And it gives you, or I don't want to speak for you, but like it gives me confidence that this is worthwhile, right?
Yeah. Well, and the network. That's the network effect of all of this is incredible because the space is so small. People who are listening to this podcast right now, just like do something, like get active in some way, shape, or form. Everyone is 6 degrees of separation from literally everyone in the space.
Yeah.
And it's the coolest thing. You can literally do anything.
Leverage the network.
Yeah.
And that's the crazy thing you'll come to learn too. Like you DM people and they'll respond.
Yep.
And they'll be like, hey, you're interested in this? Thank God. I can't fucking talk to my brother about this, but you're asking me something that I would love to talk about.
Yeah. And it's so new, and most people that are listening to this podcast are light years ahead of the majority of the population, to where, you know, like the small town that I moved to in Ohio for a little time after I moved out of Florida, they had gotten attacked by hackers who had held them for ransom.
Like, what was it, the Heartbleed one?
I don't know. They couldn't explain it to me. So I went there to try to help them build a tech makerspace for the youth in the area. It's a disadvantaged area. We were trying to help them raise some money so that they could get kids in after school programs, get them in IT workshops and things of that nature. And when we were doing our initial, presentation for the community, one of their commissioners came up and told me about this hack that they'd had, and they paid 8 Bitcoin in ransom to get all of the sensitive information back. And I was explaining to him that like they still have it all.
They just sent you a copy.
Yeah. He was like, what do you mean? No, they gave it all back. I'm like, no, that's not how this works. And so you get the opportunity to share some of this information with people, and like next time they'll be aware. Next time they'll understand how to handle those situations better. And everyone has the ability to just like, it's 1 or 2 phone calls, and you can become, I'd hate to use the word authority, but you can become someone within your community that others will look to for guidance on situations, and who knows where that can go.
Yeah, we call him the Uncle Jim. Uncle Jim is running the node that you connect to, and you can make sure that you're not running your node through a centralized service. Your centralized service will be Uncle Jim and not some company that you don't know.
Dude, I was talking to somebody today that has developed software that scans his network for his miners to, it's like an anti-fuckery device. Mm-hmm. So it scans his network. It can tell if pools are doing anything shady, if any of his firmware or software is doing anything shady with his hash rate. And we had this great conversation, and he built this all himself. I was so impressed.
Well, this is a great learning experience. Like, how could these people fuck with you, and how would you notice?
So there's a lot of comments that people will make about hidden fees with pools, right? When you're mining, you have to make sure that you are actually mining to your wallet. Most people understand that by now, but there's the ability for people to get in and change the wallet address. So you pay for power, you pay for all the equipment, all the Bitcoin goes to them.
Somebody else.
Right? And there's no way to get that back, obviously. So he had developed this system to just make sure that that wasn't happening. And then to be honest, when he was explaining it to me, the way that he scans the hash rate is complex beyond my level of technical understanding. But he's got it down. We're running tests right now with Hashr8OS to see how this will work. But if it does work, it will force a level of integrity on all operators that will be incredible. We've really been pushing this idea of transparency and integrity. When we started Hashr8, we were getting, just everyone tends to fuck with the mining community. It's a very competitive space.
Fuck with the mining community, or the mining community fucks with?
No, they fuck with the mining community. The service providers.
The pools?
In general. So you've got Antminer, who has their practices for how they release their equipment. You have
Amp Bleed, which was a thing.
Well, yeah. Well, you've got the firmware providers who also they provide this firmware that has fees that are sometimes transparent. There's sometimes a little bit of discrepancy between what they say they're charging and what they'll actually charge. You have various software providers that will do bait and switches and say that you're getting software for free, but in reality, whenever you mine through a certain pool, you're actually paying way more than you would otherwise. So when we came into this, we were like, all right, profit is important. Yes, we have to operate a business, but let's not focus on profit. We started our business with the understanding like we were miners, we hated what we had to deal with. So let's figure out how to avoid that kind of shit so that other people don't have to deal with it. And everything that we've done since then is we've just been on this search to find good people that really want to help and to try to leverage whatever kind of, like, call it clout, call it, social capital, whatever you want to call it. Whatever we have, we want to pass it on to people who are doing really good stuff that can provide that stuff to the mining community, either for free or for a discount, in a way that will benefit them greatly. And it's just like the conversations that we've had over the last 3 months have been amazing. There's some really cool people with great initiatives. Mauricio de Bartolomeo.
OG.
Yeah.
Been on the podcast before.
Yeah.
Shout out to Lead.io.
Yeah. So he was one of my favorite interviews on our podcast. But his proof of reserves, I want to see that take off.
It's a hard problem to solve.
Yeah. I want to see that take off.
No, and it should. And that's something that Nick Carter's been pushing too. We have the ability to do this in some capacity. It should be done, right? You shouldn't have Quadrig axes or Mount Goxes anymore.
So I'm going to be transparent here. Nick Carter always strikes me as someone who's too smart for me to talk to. Like every time I walk up to him,
Why do
like
you say that?
he just seems too intelligent. Yeah, like, and that's not an insult. That's like the highest compliment. Like I always walk up to him like, there's nothing that I'm going to say that's going to add value to this guy. And it's only because I
think you'd be surprised.
But he's so sharp, and everything that I read of his, the times that I've heard him at conferences, he is an incredibly sharp guy. But yeah, I agree. Him and Mauricio with this proof of reserves, it is where the space needs to go.
Yeah, but that's like, it's like, how do you solve that? Like Eric Voskuil has very strong thoughts on proof of reserve as well. Like, is it really possible? Like, could you just move coins into wallets, sign it, and then move them out and pretend like you have the reserves, but they're like ephemeral, right?
There's always gaming.
Yeah.
Someone will always find a way to game it for sure. But the question then is, from a game theory perspective, is the gamification still an improvement on the way that the system currently operates? Like, even if it's gamified and people are still, moving them in and out quickly.
It's like, yo, you had these 1 minute.
Yeah.
You can bring them back, right?
It's that extra step. Like, will the scammers actually go through that extra step? And that's not to say anyone that doesn't participate is a scammer. But again, it's the opportunists in the space.
Yeah, no, and I think it's very emblematic of where we are.
Yeah.
Like, we're 11 years in. Like,
yeah.
And these are alien technologies, right?
Yeah.
It is literally an alien technology. It was dropped on us by somebody. It could be a fucking alien or an AI at the end of the day. We have no idea. It was just like dropped on us.
How crazy would that be?
Whew. If I was still smoking pot, we'd smoke a joint and talk about this.
What if McAfee is Satoshi Nakamoto?
I don't think he could be. But no, that's like, it is literally alien technology. We have no idea who created it. Could be the NSA too.
We had, there's, I don't remember his name, but yeah, go ahead.
No, when the NSA is brought up, I always fall back on it's like open source. Like everybody can audit it. Hopefully there are people much smarter than me that are like, all right, this was the NSA.
It's, God, man, what if it is? Are
It
they
could be.
listening right now?
They definitely are. Hey, my NSA supervisor. We're going to check in next week.
You're definitely going to get a call about Iran.
I fuck with Iranians. Iranian citizens. The Iranian citizens I've met, I like. Sina, what up?
I have no qualms with them. I'd love to be able to service the country, but it's them and Belarus. They're on.
I don't agree with like the
list?
autocratic like government. I do like the people of Iran.
For sure. Yeah.
I'm sorry for doxing you, Sina. Sina probably has no idea who I am at this point. It's been years since we've talked. But we were supposed to talk about mining, and one thing I do want to talk about is the transition. Like, what do you think? How do you think hash rate is affected at the halving this year? So halving has been pushed up to like late April now. It's not even in May anymore.
Yeah, they say that it's going to be late April. Who knows? Who knows when it'll actually fall? Last I checked, the Bitcoin block is still 10 minutes. So
no, it's not. It's like averaging like 9.07.
I think that if it's
nine minutes
late,
and 7 seconds.
If it's late April or if it's early May, there's going to be a correction in the hash rate at some point in time. We are going to see, the exponential increase that we've been experiencing since, God, who knows when, it seems like forever now. I think we will see a pretty big correction. And I had a conversation with Matt D'Souza.
You said 30%. You said 30% on your podcast last week, didn't you?
Yeah, I think we'd see more than that.
Yeah.
I think we could see more than that. It's all going to be dependent on, when that reward gets cut in half, you got to think that a lot of people's, their production costs are going to double. So it's not a great situation for people to be in who are FOMOing into S17 pluses right now, because they're going to be in not a good place depending on the cost of power.
So what's more important in your mind, getting low cost energy or getting the miners at a low cost?
A low cost energy. Yeah. Because if you've got that, you can always buy miners. Mm-hmm. It doesn't have to be one or the other, but if you have a low energy cost, you can always, fork over the money for miners later.
So when the halving happens, what is the price ceiling on the energy, in your opinion?
4 cents.
4 cents.
Yeah.
That seems pretty expensive.
Yeah, the ceiling though.
Yeah.
Yeah, the ceiling. I think the biggest miners are going to be at 2 cents.
Okay.
You know, we're going to see, I mean, in Kazakhstan right now, I've heard reports that people are getting a cent or slightly under. But it's going to be like everything depending on the government that you're a part of and the people that you know, your costs will
Vary. Right?
Yeah.
So for my audience who may not be abreast of the dynamics of the mining industry, let's talk about getting energy that's on the grid versus off the grid. Like, what are the differences? What are the pros? What are the cons?
So on the grid is, I think, something that people are familiar with. It's constant. There tends to be less variability. When you're saying off the grid, I assume you mean
straight from the source.
Okay. So if straight from the source is good if you can afford the infrastructure that goes along with that. But straight from the source, if you're referring to like natural gas, let's say, there are other costs that are associated. So you've got to buy generators that run and then can process and obviously convert that natural gas into the electricity that runs the mining equipment. Those deteriorate over time. So you bring in other variables like the quality of the gas that you're bringing up. There's upstream, which is from the well in the ground, and then there's midstream, which means it's already been brought out of the ground. Texas has a lot of midstream gas, and that midstream gas will run your generators for much longer without deteriorating them as much because they don't need to, it's like if you bring unrefined oil out, right? But yeah, those are the two, when it comes to the gas, I think those are the two ways that it's being done right now. And there's a big draw for that, as these oil and gas companies are really looking to move to a way that they can extract that gas so that they can keep drilling for oil.
Yeah, no, that's what I've heard is the biggest hurdle for them is their alternatives right now are like liquefying the gas and then trying to transport that.
Or flaring.
Which
is
frowned upon.
Giving the ETH heads a chubby.
Well, all right, let's dive into this. Like, fuck, the ETH heads. Is Bitcoin bad for the environment if it is used correctly in the long run? Or is it actually good for the environment if you're able to curtail that flare?
Well, I mean, if you can curtail flare and you can filter the natural gas through a generator that's going to then produce Bitcoin, it's good for the environment. I would say that 100% of the time. Bitcoin in general, I think, is indifferent for the environment. I think that, the majority of the mining is done from renewable resources that, it would be consumed otherwise, or it would be wasted, which in my opinion, wasted energy hurts our economy because now you have someone who has spent the money to actually, produce that power that now has to do nothing with it. And Bitcoin miners that can step in and use that, I mean, they're feeding money into the economy. I don't see a bad situation there.
No, and it all comes down to price at the end of the day too. And what is the cheapest energy source? That wasted energy or strand of renewables, right?
Yeah, stranded gas is definitely the way to go. Finding those reserves, which are plentiful, is becoming easier and easier. And there are a lot of solutions that are being established that can help to turn that gas into Bitcoin. Over the next couple of years, the strides that will be made in that specific area of Bitcoin mining are some of the most exciting, I think.
Yeah, I think it's just a matter of convincing the oil and gas companies that it's worthwhile, right? Like, hey, this is an alternative to your current flare vent mitigation system. Like, maybe you should look at this. And
for sure.
Like, and these oil and gas companies, what do they care about? They just care about the oil, right? Like, it's the most profitable thing in their business. They're like, oh.
Well, but what's their biggest pain point when it comes to that? So if I'm an oil and a gas company, one of the things that I fear the most is environmental backlash. So if I have the ability to do something that can mitigate the damage caused by flaring or by however I have to get rid of that natural gas, and I can generate revenue in the process, it's a no-brainer. It's just the learning curve. The educational process there is the cumbersome challenge because you're tackling behemoths that are multi-billion-dollar companies in most cases that know what they know and don't really care to figure out what they don't know. But it's a process like everything. It takes a while to drill down, but headway will be made.
So you're saying proof of stake systems will never run the world?
Why do you do this to me? Why? I mean, let me just put it this way.
Because I have to.
Let me just
because I have to, Whit.
Let me just put
because
it
I
this
have
way.
to.
If I thought proof of stake was worth a damn, I wouldn't have dedicated all of my Bitcoin to building a mining software system.
Proof of stake has been proven not to work. Wait, die. His B money didn't work.
Listen, mixed nets can work. If there's a proof of stake and proof of work component,
Don't shill decred on my podcast.
I won't.
Don't shill decred on my podcast.
It can work. However, I'm a proof of stake or a proof of work fan. Did you see what you did to me there? Did you see what that just happened?
Whit Gibbs is a proof of stake fan.
Oh my
Just
God.
admitted it.
Oh my
I'm gonna
God.
clip it, and put it on the internet. No, but
fail.
and for me, I'm a dumb person.
You're not.
I think I'm a dumb person. It just makes sense to me, like hard work, like proof of work, like makes sense. Like you have to expend energy and value to embed these transactions on this blockchain. Like that's the only fair way, in my opinion. Like proof of stake, being able to buy a bunch of capital and throw it at a staking mechanism, not as fair, in my opinion.
So you know who's being very smart about this is Layer 1. So if you followed anything that Layer 1 has done, they are no longer calling them mining facilities. They're calling them Bitcoin production factories. Because, again, it's taking the obscure and it's making it palatable. So they're putting this in terms that people can understand. And I think that they are going to be far and away the leader in North American Bitcoin production and in Asic hardware in due time, because they understand not only the narrative, but also, not only the Bitcoin aspect, but also the narrative. And as more people understand that, it will move away from the argument that proof of stake could potentially compete with proof of work.
It's always been a virtue signal. It's always been a virtue signal.
Yeah, I mean, it's like communism. Just show me a situation where it works, and then I'll believe you.
Right?
You know what I mean? Like, just show me. Show me. Like, Bitcoin works. It works. Like, 11 years. If it wasn't for Bitcoin, none of the other shit would exist. Like, show me that your system works, and then I'll buy into it. But if all we're going to do is argue for 4 years about how you might do something, I mean, you're like my friends in high school who couldn't get laid. You know what I mean?
It's 6 months away, dude. It's always 6 months
Hey, man,
away.
prom's coming up.
It's always 6 months away. Are we gonna sign an agreement? Is this American Pie? No, but it's like, cock. So many people get hung up on that, though, dude.
What can you do? I am hopeful for Prog Pow, though. Like, that is something.
Why?
GPU miners, man. Like, okay.
How can you be? Like, if they change it to ProgPow, what confidence that you can have that they won't change it to something else in the future?
If they do implement Prog Pow, it will take them so long to. I mean, it's already going to take them so long to implement anything. But I think the definitive action on Prog Pow would basically eliminate the thought of proof of stake. And the funny thing is, before they ever...
That would destroy Ethereum, though. Like, how...
You're assuming right now it's not already destroyed, though.
Yeah, that's true.
Like, that's the only thing is, like, right now all of this is... And I have friends that are going to give me shit about this,
No,
but...
fuck your friends.
But it's...
Sorry. No, I love
No,
you guys.
man, but it's... Like, I've been the biggest person, the biggest proponent of saying that ETH is just a platform to launch ICOs. It's still mineable, but when Vitalik started to, demonize miners, and I had to watch all of my friends take a bath on their GPUs that are no longer profitable in mining ETH. It was rough. So I hope that ETH implements something that will still favor GPU miners. And if they don't, I hope they die a slow and painful death.
I can get down with that, but like, they have two visions. They either stay on proof of work or they like transition to proof of like that pisses me off, right? Because they like create this perceived optionality, like, oh, it could work one way or the other. But it's like, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work.
Yeah, and right now you've got a lot of people saying that it works great as it is. I heard someone put out the argument that it works awesome as a privacy coin.
Oh my God.
But so ETH is slowly moving into Ripple. Like, they're just like the people who bag hold ETH are just becoming the ZERP crowd. Yeah, God bless. Alex Vitalik never should have given up Bitcoin Magazine.
Right? That's the saddest part about this, because he was writing some of the best content. That's like the big, going back to siren calls, like that's the biggest flaw of a lot of the big personalities in this space, in my opinion, is like you see the success of Bitcoin, you're like, I could do better. But it's like, could you really? Like, I'm a huge believer in the timing of Bitcoin, the Immaculate Conception. I don't think it's replicable. And if you do replicate it, you destroy the underlying value prop of the whole asset class. Like, it is Bitcoin or nothing, where you just like basically hit this like, holy shit, it works.
Yeah.
And if it fails, everything fails, in my opinion.
Yeah, and you know, the cliche is that the first one through the door always gets shot. I think Bitcoin has proven that that's not the case. So, I mean, it's really hard to knock it right now. You've got huge financial backers. You've got tons of people spending millions of dollars to deploy, you know, hardware to support this network.
I'm going to stop you there.
Yeah.
And that's one thing I believe too. Like, I've been writing about this. I think there's an order of operations to all this. If like we want these systems to be successful in the long run, like you actually need, like, a lot of people think of it as solely a software revolution, but there's like, as we know, we're talking about mining tonight. Yeah. Like, we need the mining infrastructure to be sufficiently distributed and sophisticated for the software to succeed. And I think a lot of like the ETH, the DeFi crowd severely discounts that.
Yeah, I can't speak to the DeFi crowd, but definitely ETH.
That is the DeFi crowd.
Are they? Are they all the?
Yes,
do they all have to get lumped into DeFi?
Yeah.
Isn't lead in DeFi?
Well, yes. Leadin is a form, but they're using DAI. DAI is their stablecoin.
Okay,
but I think I think DeFi. But again, order of operations.
Yeah.
Right? You can't have an assurance for decentralized, like, whatever. Like, I only want a savings account. I only want Bitcoin. Yes, if you want to go get loans and some distributed app, go for it. But I do wholeheartedly believe you need this infrastructure built out first to make sure that the assurances of that decentralized financial system will actually come to fruition, like that you'll actually be able to depend on it at the end of the day.
True.
The hardware infrastructure is important. I think a lot of people are discounting the hardware infrastructure.
I would agree with that. That's something that as we move forward, the most valuable assets in this space will be backed by significant amounts of hardware. You know, if you were going to, I mean, just look at anything. Look at any commodity. You know, if you were going, I mean, it just kind of, it paints its own picture. As we move forward, especially through the halving, I think that, yes, a lot of capital is being deployed now into mining. There may be a little bit of a stall as we approach the halving. I think that we will see a level of capitulation after the halving. And when that capitulation occurs, I think we will see an unprecedented amount of capital get deployed to buy that capitulated mining equipment.
So capitulation solely in hash rate or price?
When I say capitulation, I mean of mining hardware.
Okay.
So I think that we're going to see people who have either bought for stupid prices, their hardware for stupid prices, or they're paying more than they should be for electricity because they wanted to FOMO in before the halving. They are going to capitulate and sell their equipment. And at that time, we will see capital that's been sitting on the sidelines get deployed in a massive way to buy those miners at discounted prices. And then we will see an exponential rise in Bitcoin. I don't do price targets, but I'm going to keep buying.
I'm as well, and that's the other thing. Like talking about minor capitulation. Fuck, the bourbon's got me fucked. What was I gonna go into? Give me a second. Where are we at?
We're putting some work on this bourbon, man.
130, 143.10. Fuck, I completely forgot about what is it. I had something perfect to say too. Let me write this down. 143.10. Oh, that's the thing. Like, the timing of when you buy the miners is so important. And as a miner, like, when do you figure that out, and how do you, because the hardware price is very reflexive to the price of Bitcoin, right? As soon as Bitcoin goes up, hash rate goes up, the underlying hardware price is very reflexive to that, correct?
Yeah. So in spring 2019, when we saw the pump, at that time, the hardware was going up about 30% week to week. And when we see a decline in price, the Bitcoin facilities can mine at a loss for a period of time, right? But if it becomes clear that that's not sustainable, they will start to liquidate assets. And when they liquidate, they usually have to do it in a fairly fast time frame. So you're able to mine, or you're able to monitor a lot of the Telegram channels that will help to liquidate, and you'll see it. You'll see the prices go from, you know, 1,500 to 1,200 to 1,000 to 900 to 600, and then, you know, people are just buying all the way down, just like they would with Bitcoin. They're dollar cost averaging their miners, which of course helps with their ROI. You know, right now, a lot of people are projecting, if they're buying an S17, that their ROI is, I mean, depending on their cost of power, 11 to 14 months. You know, I mean, which is totally reasonable considering current prices. After the halving, if you're buying mining equipment and you're paying, let's say, you know, 4 cents per kilowatt hour, but you're getting your S17s at 50% of what they're selling for now, you can,
it's basically even,
get pretty close to that. Yeah.
Yeah. It's fascinating, man. It's so dynamic.
Yep.
So dynamic. So many variables at play. Like so many things.
4.
Right. Well,
I mean, that's the
4. So what are the 4 variables?
Oh, I'm really can't believe I said that out loud.
Caught you.
Yeah, you did. So you got your OpEx, your CapEx, your power, and your land. So, but after those 4 variables, that's basically it. There's
just
nothing
managing the risk management within those variables.
You plug those in, and that's it.
Yeah.
You know, so it's a very formulaic situation, and after that, it's just numbers.
And there's always dumb money coming in, right? Or will there always be dumb money coming in?
I'm hoping that the dumb money will be invested in smart companies that will then deploy that capital.
Okay.
So, you know, I think there would have been a time in the past where people would have looked at, you know, a Fidelity, even though, you know, they're massive, and they would have considered them to be a dumb money fund. But Fidelity, being as smart as they actually are, jumped out in front of the blockchain and the Bitcoin trend, and it's like created a huge, like a department dedicated to this. So now a lot of these, what would otherwise be considered big, cumbersome financial institutions, are cognizant and aware enough to create these, you know, these little sects within their operations, to where the what would otherwise be dumb money is now actually pretty smart. You know, Amanda Fabiano and the team there, we talked about a lot of shit conferences that we went to in the past. The mining summit that they did in Boston last year was incredible. My favorite thing that I've been to ever in crypto. I learned more in that one day. Like, I couldn't even stay for the after party. So we finished. I went downstairs and I'm like, all right, I need to go get this out. So like, I have this process where after if I sit through something where it's intense learning, I got to go write stuff down or I'll forget it, you know? So I bolted out of there, started taking notes. And that was that was the most impactful day of 2019 for me.
You're not the first person who's told me that. I've heard that conference in particular is like very dense and very high quality.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's how crazy is it to see Fidelity, like Abby Johnson and crew, like just take and that's the beauty of Fidelity too, right? They're still private. That still blows my mind.
Right.
They have like $2 trillion assets under management. 7.2, excuse me. Off by an order magazine.
$7.2 trillion.
And they're private, dude. And they're thinking about Bitcoin. Smart people are thinking about Bitcoin.
Yep.
Is that where we ended on? Are we done here? Can we keep going?
I could, but I don't know if we should.
I think we should. I don't want to force you to do it. We're an hour and 50 minutes in on this.
I mean, I'm here. I'm in New York until tomorrow. We can talk for a while.
What's your least favorite part of New York?
My least favorite part of New York? I don't know that I have one. Right now, so this may sound terrible, but right now with everything that's going on with the coronavirus, I'm kind of in this like let's dodge people thing. So my least favorite place is anywhere crowded.
Yeah, and you're in the most crowded city in the U.S.
I know, it's terrible. But we're drinking whiskey. So I sent you the article.
Yes. We got to get some honey involved.
It was cured by honey and whiskey. So hot toddies, as they're called in the South. Hot toddies,
yes. I don't want to trigger anybody. Just go listen to Dave Collin podcast. We talk about this shit.
That was a great podcast.
There's we don't know what's going. Like it's freaking me out that I'm in one of the economic hubs of the world, and there's apparently a pandemic where we've been letting people fly into the city from where the virus is.
Yeah.
And we don't have many cases here.
Yeah.
It may be targeting a particular type of person. That's all I'm going to try to say.
So two of my co-founders are obsessed with this. So every morning, I've been in Europe, they've been in the States. So I would wake up to like, a laundry list of comments and like tweets and videos of what's going on in Wuhan. And it's the more you plug into it, the more worried you get. My wife thinks I'm crazy every time I bring it up. She's like, just shut up about it already. And it's true. I think that it's something that we need to be cognizant of, but I don't know that it's a necessary thing to worry about.
We've been through this many times. Ebola, SARS, swine flu.
Yeah. If it's your time, it's your time. You're going to go. You could get hit by a bus.
Yes. That's a big quote here on Tales from the Crypt. Enjoy it, freaks. Just enjoy it. You're going to be here for a short amount of time. You never know when it's going to fucking happen. It could happen to you right now. Like, hey, embrace. That's actually, once you embrace the fact that whenever I get on a plane, I'm like, hey, this could be it. This could be it. Like, I used to be afraid of flying. And then once you confine yourself to like, hey, this could be it, life actually gets like a little more refreshing.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's true.
Confine yourself to that. I'm getting way too drunk right now.
You're welcome.
Thank you. We crushed half this bottle.
You've been doing good, man. You've been doing good.
Swellers. Do you have any
hopefully you edit this podcast.
There's no editing. There is no editing. I hope you know that. I hope you knew that before you came on.
There we go.
Do you hope for my sake or your sake?
No, I'm good. I have no filter.
Yeah, neither do I.
I think life is more fun this way.
I do as well. Do you, before we part here, do you have any parting notes for the freaks? Anything you want to get out there?
You're awesome, man. Keep doing what you're doing. Thank you so much for having me on.
Dude, thank you for answering my DM, dude.
It's a great time. Yeah, we'll have to do it again sometime.
Yeah, go check out the Hashr8 podcast #1, and then Hashr8OS if you're a minor. Honestly, dude, I was embarrassed that your podcast had not been on my radar until Monday of this week, and I listened to it, and I had to immediately reach out to you, like, you're in town this week, we need to fucking talk.
Well, thanks, man. I appreciate that. Yeah, we're a good mix of completely irreverent, not suitable for work content, and a little bit of mining mixed in. Next show we'll have John McAfee on. I'm just kidding. No, and anyone who's into mining, we'd love for you to check out os.hashr8.com. Let us know what you think. We're building this for miners, so love it or hate it, you let us know.
Hashr8.com is HASH8.
HASHR8.com. Yeah, on there you'll get the website, you'll get the operating system, some of our articles as well.
We'll link to it in the show notes.
Perfect, man.
Whit, I really appreciate you coming by, dude.
Thanks for having me, dude.
Peace and love, freaks.